back to Talk Recovery, Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. Stay tuned, we got some current swell coming up at the end of the show. We're back in studio, live on Facebook. Hello everybody, what's going on? Harrison, love you buddy. Love a shout out to my kid. We are in studio with Brian T. and Giuseppe is going to do the interview, so we're going to pass the mic.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Talk Recovery Radio, powered by New West Recovery. We're made up of Last Door and Westminster House out in New West. Shout out to the Door Boys
what
and
up, everybody?
Girls. And we got Brian T. in studio.
Brian Thomas.
Brian Thomas, okay. Brian Thomas, alrighty.
It's out of the bag, dude. It's out of the fucking bag.
You know, the best part of today was the first guest of the show was about men, chem sex, and for a guide for gay men's sex. And Darren did the interview, and Darren, you did a really good job.
Dude, you're
very politically correct. Yes.
Hey, we're not following any type of standard here.
Yes, and I get to interview Brian. Brian is a member of the recovery community. And the last time not the last time, I see Brian quite often. He was an MC for a Recovery New Year's Eve event. But I remember long ago, I had relapsed and I was on the Surrey Strip. And things have changed since then. Brian, welcome to the show. So I always like to start off just not your step four or anything like that, but kind of like, the qualifying thing. How did you, short form. So, how did you end up in a chair right here?
Oh, God, that's a good one. It's hard to condense 20 years down into, this little snippet. So I got a day's notice because, ladies and gentlemen, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel when they called me. Because I think it was last day.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, what's this dude gonna do?
We need to pick somebody. So, you're the first person that's ever brought cue cards to the show.
It's just because I have so much to say. I have so many stories. I've worked in harm reduction, I worked on the streets, I worked front lines, I did case management, flying kids back and forth to treatment, I've worked with youth, adults, everywhere down to
So let me ask you this
everything.
question. Because we've done lots of personal stories. Addiction is addiction. Recovery is amazing, and there's recovery out there. There's a conversation in your story. What was it like being in recovery, working in harm reduction?
Well, that's huge. I mean, I learned in both sides of the fence. I got to that point where I've done a lot of work. I've been into a lot of different institutions that I worked at, and I grew out of it. I got to a point where I let politics, I let my own personal choices, who was in my life was a big situation, at the time. It was really easy to kind of move on and do this separation, because I got two stories. Do you want the one that works, how to do it? Or you want the one where it's like you detach, you go home and you smash yourself in the head with a bottle of vodka and call it a day?
Right. I think everybody
which one do you want?
And
when I look at my story, I've got two bottoms.
Yeah.
Right? And I was saying earlier, the gift now is to just make sure that I did that secondary stage of work. What that dude was talking about, that book, I want that book.
Our first guest.
For when I taught in Harbor Lake Treatment Center, right? And I was there, and we'd do the afternoon, I got to do a class, right? And so one of the classes I came up with was sex addiction.
Yeah.
Because it's the elephant in the room.
Nobody talks about it.
And it's like, a lot of guys are embarrassed, they're very ashamed, so I'm really grateful to hear that. That guy was awesome, well written, well done interview. But, the question of being in a harm reduction model, I've really had to learn to get over my shit first, 100%. I have to accept that I got that allergy or whatever the hell I want to call it, that addiction, that piece in me that, I think when we talked about the dogs in the interview, and we've always used Pavlov's dogs, or we use Rat World, or we use all these different analogies to describe what addiction's like. I think I'm part Cocker Spaniel, because that's the dog where if you put a bowl of food on the ground, that dog's going to eat till it dies. Okay? I'm kind of like that.
Yeah.
Fucking pecan pie, chicken wings.
No, sorry.
Sex. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
With a PG-14.
So you were on the Surrey Strip?
I was.
You worked in the Surrey Strip?
When I saw you, Giuseppe, I was working there at the time.
So the Surrey Strip, for those of you that don't know what that was, or you're watching from a different place other than Surrey and Vancouver, there's a tent city along one of the streets in Surrey. So now Housing First came in, everyone's in houses now, the Surrey Strip's cleaned up.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just more hidden now? Do you think it's actually improved? Do you think they've done anything?
Well, yeah, you know, I
like
had
you
to,
were in the thick of it.
I burnt out when I saw shelter workers running out doing first responder jobs. You know, I was at the front room and if
Nobody
you got
talks about that, eh? Like that, what you just said there is
this
like
first responder work, dude.
Unbelievable what
100%.
shelter workers
They're
are
making
being forced to
$23
do.
an hour. Some of them are like
Yeah.
a year in their own recovery process, and it's like, you know, there's someone on Narcan duty, right? And when the tent city splashed, is because what happened is I worked with a lot of agencies, city survey, and all that stuff, and I worked on a strategic team. So I've talked to in private with mayors, you know, about what to do,
Yeah.
and one of my jobs was to troubleshoot the system. So I would get into that, submit it, but it's always the hierarchy goes up the food chain.
What,
Right?
what do we need to do?
What do we need to do?
Yeah, what did you tell the mayor?
Oh, what did I tell the mayor? Oh, God.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember a lot. Actually, it was what do you want to do? And I said, we got to go humanitarian. Okay? I see people in the cannabis movement out there. I see people in the harm reduction. Let's take out the criminality. 100%. Get rid of the bullshit. Let's be adults. Drugs are there. How are you going to stop someone from doing dope?
Yeah.
You know, I've had friends that are like, you know, hey, what if drugs were legal and you could go and get a prescription? I'm like, more power to you. There'd be a lot of people standing here right now that might have had a chance to recover and get clean. And I see it as a way in. So if I can get someone housed, one of the shelters that was the best model ever, dude, was when that, you know, a lot of people like, I don't know, in the 90s, right? In the 90s, I was like sleeping on a table, you know, back when I was just hurting, right? And my story then, God, it's been a long time. Very grateful to be here. But the thing is that the shelter would be like, okay, it's 8 a.m, get up, get out. Here's your brown bag, go do your day.
Go to your
And they'd have to shuffle along. And you know, I remember this cocky politician that's like, well, why can't they turn their life around on welfare? Come on. Yeah, you go rent a place for $600 a month in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Come on, right? And then there are all these rooming houses. That seemed to be like, we went and cleaned out, I think it was 100 beds we eliminated from pharma houses, you know?
Okay, yeah, the certain flop houses.
Well, and I hate to say it, there's so much corruption, dude, in this industry that I've seen all of it, dude. I've seen all of it. And, you know, I had a client, I remember this one client comes to me and, you know, I was going to see a client in outreach, so I go to this mansion, okay? Everything looks pretty normal. You open the door and it's like holes in the walls, just ravaged, you know, no food. The kitchen's got paneling ripped up off the floor. And this is like, we're talking about like $2 million home in the back of South Surrey, right? And I go downstairs and I was actually doing a UBC doctor thing. I had little Doogie Housers beside me for a while. We did this doctor education program. I'm like, whatever your patient says in the clinic is not necessarily how they're living out there, right? So
you mean somebody would?
So when I'm talking to the mayor, I'm telling him about pharmaceutical corruption. I'm talking about how they house these people. And so I, you know, as we're trying to keep one client, like if we didn't find that client in the basement, she was dead.
Yeah.
She was dead.
That happens a lot.
She had 2 tablespoons left of in her lung. She was pneumonia. She had endocarditis pneumonia, right?
Okay.
So the guy that ran the house, there wasn't a running a house. It's a manager of a flop house, right? Everyone's getting high. The medications show up, daily dispense, you know, and these guys weren't even taking their meds, right? And so I saw this one dude, and he's a nickname, Rapper, right? So I don't know, shout out Rapper, hope you're okay and alive. And he's like, Brian, why would I get clean? Why would I stop?
Yeah.
I get money coming in, cigarettes, roof over my head. So what we're doing is they stopped the death houses, right? Moved them out. Then they're all on the tents on the strip.
Yeah, they were all.
They were all contained on the strip. So there's this huge movement to shut these homes down, get everybody on the strip. Cool, right? Now we can be in front and center. But that's when fentanyl came. And it was a nightmare, dude. It was a nightmare. It was like 3-4 revivals a day.
I remember the mobile unit on what's the street called? What is it?
134.
What is it?
134.
134. So I remember the mobile unit down there. What do you think about this story? I remember talking to a dear friend of mine. She worked in the downtown east side. She's in recovery. She had a difficult time working in the downtown east side, being in recovery. She actually left and doesn't do that anymore. And one of the tipping points was she saw an old friend of hers, and she was working for a positive an HIV organization, so they would do outreach to people with HIV. And this woman was in full-blown AIDS, just weighed maybe 70 pounds. It was really, really bad. And when she saw my friend, the first thing she did was ask her for money. And my friend's like, I can't give you any. But hey, why don't I take you to a meeting? And because I'm clean now. They used to do stuff together when they were younger. And my friend got reprimanded because she suggested recovery to this dying person.
Yeah.
So, do you think in the Surrey Strip and the whole movement and all that, do you think we've done enough for recovery? Do you think we've done enough?
Well, I God bless everybody that's down there trying to help. You know, I think, you know, I was at the Recovery Capital Conference, right? I meandered in September, and just to check out the scene, because I've been out of the whole scene for a while, right? I had to leave. I burnt out. I chose my passion, and that was on the river. And
did you get any support when you burnt out?
I did, but it was the people that like me because I'm Brian Thomas, not Brian T. Right? So my close friends and family were always very supportive, very grateful for that. Some colleagues that I used to work with are awesome, and a lot of it was just me going through my process, and at the same time, what place does abstinence-based recovery have down on a place like the Wally Strip, right? I got mandated down there. I'm a trade addictions counselor, right? My job was to try and find those people that wanted to survive, get them prepared for treatment, and ship them off. And so that was me. And then I had a nurse and every nurse quit. I had a nurse for 2 years and everyone quit. And
a lot of turnover.
So God bless, you know, I tell you, Harbor, Lookout, and the work that Lookout does is a miracle. Yeah. And those workers down there, some are for sure, like the workers, the frontline staff, a lot of in recovery. A lot of them are like, no, man, they pull people aside and, you know, they do their thing. But there's a very big difference between working for a nonprofit and government. And so when I work for the government, non-denominational, I can't use those certain words. It's now a substance use disorder, right? And I think, why not? Like, let's appeal to everybody. Yeah. Like, you know, last week that lady wrote the book about managing wine. Cool, right on. If
Did you see all the negative posts?
Dude, I was like,
everybody that commented on our show last week. I was just like, hey, we gotta talk about everything. Let's switch tune a little bit here. Let's talk about you and not changing the world. So you got a couple of kids, your dad,
3 boys,
and you know, what are you doing? You know, you've changed careers. You were burnt out. You know, that's a story a lot of people can relate to. So what are you doing today?
Today, man, I'm just loving it. I'm not exact. I had to kind of grieve it. So just to give you a little nutshell, it was pursued my dream of being on the water. You know, I wanted to go there. A friend of some of ours, Peter Quinn, passed away. Yeah. Great man. Always teased me when I was down on the front. You know, I watched him struggle, but you know, he's like, "When are you gonna come down and get on a boat, Brian? Come on!" And I'm like, because I love water. Like Fraser River, me and a jet ski, heaven, right? So anyhow, I went to the tugboat union. They looked at me. I gave them this counseling resume, and the guy looks at me and goes, "You ever been on a boat?" Well, I'm like, "Yeah, I've been on a couple of boats, but they weren't more than like 27 feet, you know." And so he said, well, I'll put this resume in my boneyard, and, you know, if you're interested, we'll see. Because he laid out 8 things I had to do. So I started doing it, and plugging away, and going for it. And I was so passionate. You know, there I was, you know, in young 40s, right? But I was standing on a boat, right? My skipper was 10 years sober, so he's talking some recovery, kind of cool dude, nice cat. I still go out for lunch with the guy. And I was so stoked, man. I'd arrived. Like, that for me was like, I was lit. Because I didn't have to see the madness anymore. Like, I was suffering from nightmares. I still get nightmares. I'm being treated for PTSD today. From the dead bodies and the end of life people that I worked with, right? It's fucking
scary
hard.
Stuff.
Really hard, dude.
Scary stuff.
I got stuff I wish I could just erase. And I don't want to bring it up here because you don't need it. I don't want to traumatize you listeners today. And so, so I went to that point where I was just stoked and I was feeling life, and then what happened 6 months into it, I went down 17 feet straight on a ladder, broke my wrist, popped my 2 elbows, shin. I had these huge titty elbows. I had bursitis sacs on my elbow, and it was like this, and so it was really hard. So now I'm like, what now? right? So as I was looking at which way to go, okay, depression, just isolate, maybe continue drinking some of that wonderful elixir, the sleeping pill, I call it, the liquid sleeping pill, or do I suck it up, use my, stop resting on laurels of bullshit and just come back and be part of, get connected to the mothership again, right? And that's like seeing you two knuckleheads, right? I love you guys, man. I watch you struggle. It's really cool to be here. It's really, I have been a fan since day one on this show. And I love the fact you're using recovery, like it's everything, like that, like the chick managing her drinking the wine. Yeah. Hats off. I've made the exception.
My friends that were commenting on that post last week, I'm like, of course I support. Of course I support recovery, but I just want to see what this person.
But
has
are we
to
supposed
say.
to love everybody else?
And she said in the interview too. Dude. She's like, if you're an alcoholic and you drink and then get sober and then drink again and black out, you should probably stay sober.
Maybe you want to quit drinking.
Yeah, but she's changed her tune too, though, because I've listened to some of her other podcasts.
Okay.
And like I think it was when she started, a lot of people are changing their mood because of this break of anonymity. It's not okay to say recovery doesn't work anymore, because when you do, the recovery community is now like, hey, that's not okay to say. So you recovery people out there, stick up for our stories.
But
I have a really important question for you before we run out of time. So you're a father.
Yep.
There's some dads and moms listening.
Hi.
And you're in recovery. You're very fluent in the harm reduction world. What's it like raising kids? You got to go 4 minutes for this.
Okay.
Because give some advice. Like what do you do? You're in recovery. A lot of sober parents probably listening. And your kid's using drugs, or you might, or like, what's that conversation? What is it? You know what I mean? Because you're harm reduction, sober, don't use, do that.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Okay, well, I look at it from a perspective of love, right? It's all about what's my relationship, am I present for my kid? It doesn't matter if I'm occupied with work, what's going on outside the house, or am I here and now, right? The mindfulness place. I've got a 25-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 10-year-old. The 10-year-old, God bless it, things have worked out. I ended up being a complete single father. No support from the other half. That's working out now, thank God, right on. And all I've done is just, what I've learned, man, pray for the other person. So as I've got my son, my 10-year-old, I can't, for a long time, I've been around. I've been raising kids. I've been at a hockey rink, dude, for 10 years. Every Saturday and every Sunday morning. I've been at dance class and choir class every weeknight. It is a full-time job. And so to try and mix into my meetings and my support, I mean, God, I broke my wrist so I guess that gave me the time, right? Yeah. But I know it's hard. Like if you got a 12-hour shift and childcare and you're working your ass off every day, it's not easy. When I had my 10-year-old, he was 5 years old. It was just him and I was working swing shifts at the Chilliwack Detox, right? So I had 2 days, 2 nights, and thank God his mom and I shared. But I was exhausted, man. You do a graveyard, and then you got to stay up. Come home, make breakfast. I've been making breakfast and paying and doing my work for 25 years, and so now for me it's second nature. But when I was early in that stage, it was a chore. And then I would bring my kid. Nowadays I love it, man. iPads and headphones. Go sit in the back there, kiddo. Right on, and they're good. And I think that as a member of areas and places, I look for that to support other parents. I think the biggest thing is to talk about it and to share that. Like where I go to intimate, quiet stuff now. My son comes, and he might be over in the back or in my car or whatever. He's 10, right? And or I get a babysitter, and thank God, my father's an amazing dude. He's got a relationship with his grandkids, so he watches them, right? So I can do these things, and even coming down here today, I mean, hats off to single parents, man. I couldn't check him in and then check in myself when I burnt out and I was, suicidal and because I went really dark places, seeing the visions I had and all that sort of stuff. Like there's a guy in my hot yoga class who's a retired firefighter, and him and I relate when we talk about Narcan Valley and what it's like to work out there, right? And so, having that support and like everything I've heard today has just been a blessing, right? Like this morning I got up and it's like, I was super stoked, nervous as hell.
You wrote cue cards.
I did, because I looked at all the places I worked at, like
that's a lot of places.
20 places in addiction services, And I was thinking about all the different little funny things to talk about. We kind of covered them, but you know, the parenting question's good, dude, because I've been a dad in recovery forever.
It's an issue that
And-
people struggle with, and
Yeah.
it's something that we
Well-
need to support families. So I am going to pass the microphone over to Darren.
Any questions?
Thank
on there?
you.
What's up?
Any questions? We had no phone lines, but we're out of
You
time.
guys suck.
Just stay tuned,
Not
stay
you.
tuned for the comments on our Facebook page.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Thanks for being on
Well,
the
I'd
show.
like to give one shout out to Old Hands at the Sweat Sundays, my little home group, Little House. Love you guys in Tawasin. If it wasn't for Little House, I don't know where I'd be. And Little House, I'm on the board of directors there. We're doing some fundraising. So Little House Tawasin, guys, I love you guys. They do great work for families, friends, everybody. And one of the things I'd last say is do the second stage, the CODA stuff. Just get into it, man. Get on it, do it.
Brian Thomas, everybody in the studio with his personal story. Just a quick service announcement. This show is called Talk Recovery, not Talk Abstinence, not Talk Anti-Harm Reduction. This show we created to create the conversation, to get rid of as much stigma as we can along any line of topic and any care, any solution-oriented practices. And you know what? Like my version of recovery, whatever I've said or made note about doing in my life, I am by no means saying that that's the only way, and that's why we open our phone lines to anyone that's talking about the potential of an individual with a problem making their lives better. And we hope that that's been clear, and we will continue to have any topic on this show. So thank you very much for tuning in.
And thanks for doing that, guys. Like big time. It means a lot, man, to be in the industry and see all this, and it's like everyone's at the same table.
Thank you very much. Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, and we're going to say good day to you all, and this is a little current swell, bad news.
Right on, guys.
All right, see you later.